dime. So I think at the broadest sense, our strategic options are laid out here. Obviously, and this is getting off a dime to getting a gas pipeline built, and in particular an LNG project. Do nothing, status quo, clearly the highest probability outcome. It's been the outcome for 35 years. It's going to require a fundamental change for something different than nothing to happen. The bullet line is another proposed strategy. I think there's beginning to be a sense among Alaskans that the bullet line doesn't really solve our problems. It doesn't provide cheap energy in state. It doesn't provide revenues to the state to offset future declines in oil production and revenues generated therefrom. And more importantly, what I don't like about a bullet line is that if you ever went forward with it, the state would end up spending a very large chunk of its savings to make it economically viable. And both the cost of doing so and the time delays associated with this construction would almost certainly prevent a big line from being built for a decade or two. So I would actually put a bullet line as a less favorable option than do nothing. The next option, and the one that I think the Parnell administration is pursuing, as did the Murkowski administration, is the option of a producer pipeline and a producer project. And by producer, I mean the North Slope lessees, BP, Exxon, and ConocoPhillips. The path of that option, as I'll discuss in detail, is at a broad sense well-defined. It's fiscal certainty to those companies on oil and gas, then followed by technical work and a commercial decision by those companies to move forward. The fourth option, and the one that I'm suggesting might be in Alaska's best interest, and we should start seriously talking about, is state control. That is, to take control away from the producers and for the state to step into that development role. So the demand for fiscal certainty. Exxon, BP, and ConocoPhillips require fiscal certainty before they'll make a commercial decision on a pipeline. Now, I've got a couple quotes to lay that out, and I don't think this is a controversial statement. In fact, I think it's fair to say that Exxon in particular has been shouting from the rooftops that they want fiscal stability before they're even going to undertake the technical work, or continue undertaking the technical work. So why does Exxon want fiscal certainty? Well, I read this quote just a couple days ago when I was reading the new book on Exxon that Steve Cole did, and I'll read it to the crowd. And this is a quote from Lee Raymond, or this is a quote from the author that was talking with Lee Raymond. Exxon had opportunities to exploit oil and natural gas in Alaska. They held back from some expensive deals because CEO Lee Raymond had learned after the Valdez oil spill that the political risks posed by Alaska's frontier-minded political culture and populist governors were comparable to those of West Africa. So as an Alaskan West African, I think what Lee Raymond is telling us is, from the company's perspective, once bitten, twice shy. That they are going to withhold capital investment on major infrastructure development, including what would have been Point Thompson had we not forced our hand a little bit, as well as a gas pipeline decision, until they are substantially convinced that investment in Alaska will be financially stable in terms of government risk. Practically how that's going to work, or how it would work, I would think, would be that the state would find people that are interested in purchasing the gas at the wellhead. They would align with those companies, and these are major companies. I mean, these are companies with the same sort of global Fortune 500 financial balance sheets that the North Slope producers have. I mean, maybe not as big as Exxon, but global companies that can do these kinds of projects. And rather than looking for BP, Conoco, and Exxon to fulfill the role of project oversight that we're currently assuming that BP, Exxon, and Conoco would fill, you would get your downstream purchasers, or maybe even other integrated oil energy companies to buy at the wellhead if they wanted to take a direct marketing of the gas, rather than just selling it to the Asian buyer specifically. So, I mean, this is all basic stuff. So, your first step would be for the state to go and they'd find the Asian buyers, they align with the Asian buyers, they agree on rough commercial terms, they offer to buy gas at the wellhead from the North Slope producers. Once that process sees its way through, and we'll talk about that, the state and its new project partners develop the commercial arrangements to undertake permitting and engineering necessary for FID, and then the state and its partners contract program managers, including the risk-sharing arrangements, and of course, start undertaking procurement for construction. So essentially, you substitute the gas purchaser, or another global energy, for the role BP, Exxon, and Conoco would like to play in the project. Of course, you know, if BP, Exxon, and Conoco ever decided that they wanted to participate in the project, the state wants to move forward, that's fine, but it would be under the state's terms, and it would not be under theirs. The idea here being avoiding the need for fiscal certainty. So, do we need BP, Conoco, and Exxon? I don't think we do. From a project owner perspective, Exxon, BP, or ConocoPhillips are not unique. They're large companies, they're good at what they do, but there are other large companies that can do it as well. As an initial point, and a lot of people don't realize this, energy companies don't construct large diameter pipelines. TAPS was not constructed by Alyeska, by Bechtel, or by BP, Arco, or Exxon. Rather, TAPS is broken into 6 spreads, and the construction of each of the 6 spreads was built by one of the about half dozen large international pipeline contractors in the country, like Price Gregory, Sheehan, US Pipeline, welded construction. Rather, the owner role is an oversight role. It's the role of overseeing how the project gets constructed. And as I said, other companies are capable of fulfilling that role once they have the gas and they have the financial investment into the project. So the real uniqueness of BP, Conoco, and Exxon, it doesn't come from their ability to execute on a project of this size. It comes from the fact that they have the extraction right. They have the mineral lease from the state. That's really their only real uniqueness. And practically that means they have the extraction right from Prudhoe and Point Thompson, because that's where the gas is that will underlie the shipping commitments on a large diameter project. But the state is also the landowner. That is, the state of Alaska owns Prudhoe Bay in fee less the mineral interest, which is the oil and gas lease. We have leased the right to some companies to extract oil. Now, mineral leases are not an ownership interest in fee. BP, Exxon, and Conoco don't own Prudhoe Bay, they own the extraction right. And leases have very well-defined obligations, and they have very well-defined rights. And in anywhere but Alaska, everyone understands what these obligations are. The first, and this is a principle of oil and gas law that cannot be disputed. It is just the law in every oil and gas jurisdiction. And what the law says is a lessee has the duty to diligently market gas from the leasehold, which includes selling at the wellhead, if there is a reasonable expectation of profit. And the reason that lessees have this legal obligation is because they are not allowed to hold leases for speculation. What you can't do is you can't say, you landowner, I'm going to refuse to develop your resource until such time as you renegotiate the deal we agreed upon. They're not allowed to hold development back in order to get concessions out of you. And this is fundamental oil and gas law, and only in Alaska would this sort of behavior be tolerated. So, the state has a legal right to insist on gas being sold at the wellhead, and that's the key to this. Because once other companies can get access to the gas and they can get title to it, they can begin making the shipping commitments themselves, they can do the investment on the LNG project, because they have the right to the gas and all of the financeability that follows. So the landholder's remedy in an oil and gas lease, when the leaseholder refuses to sell gas or oil from a leasehold, they refuse to take the product to market. The remedy is damages on your lost royalty, the 1/8 interest the state has, they get paid on as if they had sold, and ultimately, if refusal to sell continues, it's again universally recognized the forfeiture of the leasehold will be had in equity. requires for